The now 11-year-old boy very much looks his age despite facing the most serious felony there is, first-degree intentional homicide. By court order, he's not being identified because of the possibility he could yet be moved to children's court. They found the body of the boy's mother, 44-year-old Kiana Mann, in the basement. She'd been shot in the head.
November 21st, 2022, 7:00 a.m. Milwaukee, Wisconsin. A basement. A laundry basket tipped over on cold concrete. Detergent spilled across the floor, and a woman, motionless, face down, blood pooling beneath her. Upstairs, the house is quiet. Too quiet. In the living room, a child sits at a computer, 10 years old, fingers moving across the keyboard, typing in a credit card number, clicking Confirm Purchase. The order goes through. One Oculus virtual reality headset, shipped with next-day delivery. He leans back in the chair. No tears, no panic, just waiting for his package to arrive. Here's the question that's going to mess you up. What could make a 10-year-old boy retrieve a gun in the middle of the night, hide it in his nightstand, and wait for morning? What could make him follow someone down to a basement, take a shooting stance, and pull the trigger point blank? And here's the part that'll really get you. After it was done, he didn't run, didn't cry, didn't call for help. He went online, logged into an account that wasn't his, and bought the thing he'd been told he couldn't have. This isn't a story about an accident. This isn't a story about a kid who didn't know better. This is a story about a mother who did everything right and still ended up dead on her basement floor. Welcome to Shadows of Crime, where we don't sugarcoat the darkness. We drag it into the light and make you look at it. I'm your host, and today we're talking about Kiana Mann, a devoted mother, a woman of faith, a woman who loved her son even when he terrified her. Before we go any further, hit that subscribe button, smash the like, and drop a comment telling us where you're watching from today, because trust me, after this one, you're going to need someone to talk about it with. Let's get into it. Kiana Mann was 44 years old when she died, a mother of 4. A daughter, a sister, a woman who showed up for her family every single day, no matter how hard things got. She lived in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. On the north side, in a neighborhood where people knew each other's names and looked out for one another. The kind of place where a tragedy like this wasn't supposed to happen. Those who knew Kiana described her as loving, protective, and deeply committed to her children. She wasn't the type of mother who checked out when things got difficult. She leaned in. She fought for her kids. She made sure they had what they needed even when it cost her everything. Kiana worked in behavioral sciences. Think about that for a second. She spent her days helping people navigate their struggles, understanding the human mind, trying to make sense of why people do what they do. The irony of how her life ended isn't lost on anyone. Her family was tight. Her mother, Lueretha Mann, was a constant presence in her life. So was her sister, Rhonda Reed. They weren't just relatives. They were her support system, her backup, the people she called when things got overwhelming. And things had been overwhelming for a while, because one of Kiana's 4 children wasn't like the others. From the time he was small, there were signs. Behavioral issues that started as tantrums and escalated into something far more concerning. Outbursts of rage that came out of nowhere. Moments where he seemed disconnected from reality, like he was somewhere else entirely. Kiana didn't ignore it. She didn't brush it off as boys being boys or hope he'd grow out of it. She got him into therapy. She followed treatment plans. She did everything the professionals told her to do. His therapist diagnosed him with a mood disorder and conduct disorder. The recommendations were clear. Limit his access to electronics. Keep him away from violent video games. Monitor his behavior closely. So Kiana did exactly that. She installed cameras inside the home. She set boundaries. She said no when she needed to say no, even when it made him angry. Even when it made her life harder. She was trying to save him, but here's the thing about trying to save someone who doesn't want to be saved. It's exhausting, it's terrifying, and sometimes it's dangerous. Kiana's family knew she was struggling. They saw the toll it was taking on her. They saw the fear in her eyes when her son's behavior escalated. They heard the frustration in her voice when another treatment plan didn't work. But they also saw her faith. Kiana believed in God, and she believed that love could heal. She believed that if she just kept showing up, kept fighting, kept doing the right thing, her son would be okay. She believed that right up until the moment he killed her. Kiana Man wasn't a perfect mother. No one is. But she was a present mother, a mother who cared, a mother who tried. And on November 23rd, 2022, that wasn't enough. Before we go any further, pause right now and tell me in the comments, would you have seen this coming? Would you have done anything differently? Because Kiana's family is asking themselves that same question every single day. Drop your thoughts below. Virtual reality headset. He'd seen it on Amazon. He wanted it now. He asked his mother to buy it for him. She said no, not because she didn't love him, not because she wanted to punish him, but because his therapist had been clear. No electronics, no exceptions. Noah went to bed angry that night, furious, seething, and while his mother slept, while his siblings slept, while the house was quiet and still, Noah got up. He found his mother's keys. He opened the lockbox where she kept her handgun. He took the weapon, and he hid it in his nightstand. He didn't do this in a moment of rage. He didn't do this because he snapped. He planned it. A 10-year-old boy planning to kill his mother over a video game headset. Hold up, I need you to process this for a second. A 10-year-old planned this. He didn't lose control. He made a choice. Comment below, is a child capable of true evil, or is this something else? Because this question is about to get a whole lot messier. November 23rd, 2022, 6:00 a.m. Kiana Man walked into her son's bedroom and turned on the light. Time to get up, time to start the day. Noah was already awake, already angry. He usually slept until 6:30, his mother knew this, but that morning she needed him up early. Maybe she had errands to run, maybe she had work. The reason doesn't matter. What matters is that she woke him up 30 minutes before he wanted to be awake, and he was still furious about the headset. Kiana left his room and went downstairs. She had laundry to do, a basket full of clothes waiting in the basement, just another Monday morning, just another load of wash. She had no idea her son was already out of bed, no idea he'd opened his nightstand drawer, no idea he was holding the gun she thought was locked away safely. Noah followed her down the stairs, quiet, deliberate, focused. He didn't call out to her, didn't say her name, didn't give her a chance to turn around and see what was coming. He raised the gun, both hands, the way he'd seen it done in his video games, the way characters stand before they take the shot. Later, he'd tell police he aimed at the wall. He'd say he just wanted to scare her, just wanted to make a loud noise and watch her jump. But Kiana walked in front of him, and he didn't stop. He didn't lower the gun, didn't hesitate, didn't pull back. He squeezed the trigger. The shot hit her in the face, point-blank range. She dropped instantly, no scream, no chance to fight back, no final words. Kiana Man was dead before she hit the concrete floor. The laundry basket tipped over. Clothes spilled out. Detergent pooled around her body. The basement went silent except for the ringing in Noah's ears. And then he moved. Not toward his mother. Not to check if she was breathing, not to call for help. He walked back upstairs. Calm, collected, like nothing had happened. He put the gun in the living room closet, closed the door, wiped his hands on his shirt. Then he went to his older sister's room. He knocked on the door. She opened it, groggy, confused. It was barely past 6:00 a.m. Why was he waking her up? Noah looked at her. No tears, no panic, no emotion at all. "Mom's dead," he said. His sister didn't believe him at first. She thought he was joking, thought he was being dramatic. But something in his voice made her go downstairs. She found her mother in the basement. Blood. So much blood, she screamed. Grabbed her phone, dialed 911. Operators answered. She was hysterical, crying, barely able to get the words out. Her brother stood at the top of the stairs. watching, waiting. When the police arrived, they found a chaotic scene: a traumatized teenage girl, a dead woman in the basement, and a 10-year-old boy sitting calmly in the living room. The officers asked him what happened. Noah had his story ready. He told them he'd been playing with the gun, twirling it around his finger like a cowboy in an old Western movie. It went off by accident. He didn't mean to hurt anyone. He didn't know it was loaded. The officers looked at each other. A tragic accident, a child who didn't understand gun safety, a mother who should have locked her weapon up better. They took statements, they processed the scene, they told the family they'd be in touch. And then they let Noah go home. He went back to his aunt's house with the rest of the family. They were grieving, crying, holding each other, trying to make sense of what had just happened. Noah sat on the couch, didn't cry, didn't speak, just stared at the TV. His aunt thought he was in shock, thought he was processing trauma, thought he'd break down eventually, but he never did, because Noah wasn't in shock. He was waiting for the next day, waiting to log into his mother's Amazon account, waiting to finish what he'd started. The gun wasn't the end of the story. It was just the beginning. November 22nd, 2022. The day after the murder, Kiana's family was making funeral arrangements, calling relatives, trying to figure out how to bury a woman who'd been killed in her own home by her own child. Noah was in the other room, on the computer. He logged into his mother's Amazon account. The password was saved, easy access. He scrolled through the site, found what he was looking for: the Oculus virtual reality headset, the one his mother had refused to buy him less than 48 hours ago. He clicked Add to Cart. He entered her credit card information, the same card she'd used to buy groceries, pay bills, keep the family afloat. He selected next day shipping. Order confirmed. Noah leaned back in the chair, satisfied. His mother's body wasn't even cold yet. The police were still investigating. Her blood was still on the basement floor, and he'd just bought himself a present. Rhonda Reed, Kiana's sister, noticed something was off. Noah wasn't acting like a child who'd just lost his mother. He wasn't crying, wasn't asking questions, wasn't clinging to family members for comfort. He was calm, too calm. She sat down next to him, tried to talk to him, tried to get him to open up about what he was feeling. That's when he told her, not in a whisper, not with shame or guilt, just matter of fact. I shot her because she wouldn't buy me what I wanted. Rhonda froze. She asked him to repeat himself. Thought maybe she'd misheard. Thought maybe he was confused. But Noah said it again, clearer this time. He wasn't playing with the gun. It wasn't an accident. He aimed at her. He pulled the trigger. He did it because she said no. Rhonda's hands started shaking. She asked him if he understood what he'd done, if he knew his mother was never coming back. Noah shrugged. Then he asked her a question. Did my package arrive yet? Rhonda felt her stomach drop. She excused herself, walked into the other room, pulled out her phone, and called the police. When detectives arrived, they brought Noah in for a second interview. This time, they weren't buying the accident story. They sat him down, asked him to walk them through the morning of November 21st again. Noah's story changed. He admitted he'd taken his mother's keys the night before, admitted he'd opened the lockbox, admitted he'd hidden the gun in his nightstand while everyone slept. He admitted he was angry about the headset, angry about being woken up early. He admitted he followed her to the basement, took a shooting stance, aimed the weapon. The detectives asked him if he meant to kill her. Noah hesitated, then nodded. He said he wanted to scare her at first, but when she walked in front of him, he didn't stop. He just pulled the trigger. The detectives asked if he felt bad about it. Noah looked at them. Blank expression. No tears, no remorse. I said sorry to my grandma, he replied. That was it? That was his version of guilt? One of the detectives asked him what he did after the shooting. Noah told them about the Amazon order, told them he used his mother's credit card, told him he was excited for the headset to arrive. The room went silent. These were seasoned investigators, people who'd seen the worst humanity had to offer. But a 10-year-old admitting to murder without a shred of emotion? That shook them. Noah was arrested, charged with first-degree intentional homicide, not as a juvenile, as an adult. Stop scrolling, I need you to sit with this for a second. He ordered the headset the next day. Using her credit card, while her body was still in the morgue. Comment below, what would you do if this was your family? Because his grandmother and aunt are living this nightmare right now. The first time Noah appeared in court, people couldn't believe what they were seeing. Two grown deputies walked a small boy into the courtroom. He was wearing an oversized detention center t-shirt that hung past his knees. His hands were cuffed in front of him. His feet shuffled across the floor in shoes that were too big. He looked like a child because he was a child, but the charges against him were anything but childish. First-degree intentional homicide. In Wisconsin, that carries a maximum sentence of 60 years in prison. Judge Jane Carroll looked down at the boy from her bench. She spoke slowly, carefully, making sure he understood. Do you understand we're in juvenile court, but this is an adult court proceeding? Noah nodded. His head stayed down most of the hearing. He clutched a small stuffed animal in his lap. His lawyers had given it to him to keep him calm. The prosecutor stood and addressed the court. The complaint alleges that the victim was shot at very close range in the head. This was not an accident. This was intentional. The words hung in the air, heavy, undeniable. Noah's public defender, Angela Cunningham, stood next. She argued that her client didn't fully understand the gravity of the situation, that he was a child with documented behavioral issues who needed treatment, not a life sentence. She also made a request that stunned the courtroom. Your Honor, we'd like to request a bail reduction. My client currently has bail set at $50,000. We're asking that it be reduced to $100. The judge raised an eyebrow. $100? Cunningham nodded. We've spoken to him about his ability to post anything. He told us about piggy banks with savings that he had from birthday gifts, and scavenging through cushions in the couch. That's all he has, Your Honor. $100. The courtroom was silent. The image was almost absurd. A child counting coins from a piggy bank to bail himself out of a murder charge. But Judge Carroll wasn't swayed. Bail will remain at $50,000. If Noah couldn't post bail, he'd stay locked up in the juvenile detention center, and if convicted, he'd spend the rest of his life behind bars. His attorneys also asked the court to drop a second charge of reckless homicide, calling it redundant. The judge said she'd decide on that motion at the next hearing, but the bigger issue loomed over everything. Should a 10-year-old be tried as an adult at all? Wisconsin law is clear. Children as young as 10 must be charged as adults for certain serious crimes, including homicide. There's no exception, no wiggle room. Advocates for juvenile justice were outraged. They argued that Noah's brain wasn't fully developed, that children lack the capacity to fully understand consequences, that the system was failing him just as much as it had failed his mother. But prosecutors pushed back. They pointed to the planning, the lack of remorse, the Amazon order. This wasn't a child who made a mistake. This was a child who knew exactly what he was doing. And then there was the family. Kiana's mother, Luerith, a man, sat in the courtroom. Tears streamed down her face as she listened to the details of her daughter's death. When reporters asked her later if she thought Noah should be charged as an adult, she didn't hesitate. He needs to pay for what he's done. Her daughter, Rhonda Reed, agreed. But she added something that made everyone uncomfortable. We don't know what he's capable of. We have to sleep at night. He likes to roam. I'd be scared. They were afraid of him.
We just don't know what his mental state is and what he's capable of.
We have to sleep at night, and he's a roamer. He likes to roam at night. So I don't know. I'd be a little scared.
Their own family. A 10-year-old boy. This case isn't just about one family. It's about a system that's broken in ways most people don't want to admit. Let's start with the uncomfortable truth. Kiana Man did everything right. She recognized her son had problems. She got him into therapy. She followed the treatment plan to the letter. She limited his electronics. She installed cameras. She said no when she needed to say no. She was the textbook example of a responsible parent dealing with a troubled child, and she still ended up dead. So what does that tell us? That sometimes doing everything right isn't enough. That some children are so far gone, so disconnected from reality, that no amount of therapy or intervention can pull them back. But here's where it gets messy. Noah's therapist knew he was dangerous. The family knew he was dangerous. They'd watched him hurt animals, start fires, talk to voices that weren't there. They'd seen the rage in his eyes when he didn't get his way. Yet there was nowhere for Kiana to turn. No facility that would take him, no program intensive enough to address his level of violence, no emergency intervention when his behavior escalated. She was left to manage a violent child on her own, in her own home, with her other children at risk. That's not a failure of one mother, that's a failure of an entire system. Now let's talk about the gun. Kiana kept her weapon in a lockbox. She thought it was secure. She thought her children couldn't access it, but Noah found the keys. And once he had them, nothing else mattered. Gun safety advocates will tell you that lockboxes aren't enough, that guns and ammunition should be stored separately, that keys should be hidden or kept on your person at all times. But here's the reality. Kiana was a single mother dealing with a child who roamed the house at night. A child who was obsessed, determined, and willing to wait for the right moment. Could she have done more? Maybe. But she was already doing everything she could just to survive. Then there's the justice system. Wisconsin law requires children as young as 10 to be charged as adults for homicide. No exceptions. No consideration for mental health. No room for rehabilitation. The logic is simple. If you're old enough to kill, you're old enough to face adult consequences. But scientists will tell you that's nonsense. A 10-year-old's brain isn't fully developed. The prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for decision-making, impulse control, understanding consequences, doesn't finish developing until the mid-20s. Noah couldn't legally drive a car, couldn't vote, couldn't buy a lottery ticket, but he could be sentenced to 60 years in prison. Advocates argue that children like Noah need treatment, not punishment. That locking him up for life doesn't solve anything. That with the right intervention, he could be rehabilitated. But then you look at the facts, the planning, the lack of remorse, the Amazon order. And you have to ask, can someone like Noah be rehabilitated? Or is he too far gone? His own family doesn't think so. His grandmother wants him to pay. His aunt is scared of him. They believe the safest place for him and for everyone else is behind bars. But they also admit he's not getting the help he needs. That even in custody, the system isn't equipped to deal with a child this disturbed. So where does that leave us? With a dead mother who did everything right, a 10-year-old boy facing life in prison, a family torn apart by grief and fear, and a system that failed everyone involved. There are no winners here, no justice that brings Kiana back, no punishment that makes sense, no treatment that guarantees Noah won't hurt someone else. Just a tragedy that could have been prevented if someone somewhere had stepped in sooner. But they didn't, and now a mother is dead, a child is in chains, and a family is left asking the question that haunts every true crime case. Could we have stopped this? Kiana Mann's funeral was held on a cold December morning. Her mother, Luetha, stood at the front of the church, barely able to speak through her tears. She talked about her daughter's faith, her strength, her refusal to give up on the son who would eventually take her life. She loved him, Luetha said, even when she was scared, even when she didn't know what to do. She loved him. The church was packed. Friends, family, co-workers, people who knew Kiana as the woman who always showed up, who always cared, who always tried. But one person wasn't there. Noah sat in a juvenile detention center, miles away. According to his aunt, he still hadn't cried, still hadn't asked about his mother, still hadn't shown any sign that he understood what he'd taken from the world. When he called his family, he didn't ask how they were doing, didn't ask about the funeral, didn't apologize. He asked if his tablets were packed, if his laptop was safe, if anyone had touched his things. Rhonda Reed told reporters she didn't know if her nephew was blocking out the trauma or if he simply didn't care. He's told me he doesn't remember that morning, she said. But I don't know if that's true or if he just doesn't want to talk about it. The next court hearing is set for January 2024. Noah's lawyers are pushing for a competency evaluation. They want a doctor to determine if he's mentally fit to stand trial, if he even understands what's happening to him. But the prosecution isn't backing down. They believe Noah knew exactly what he was doing, that he planned it, that he deserves to be held accountable. If convicted, he'll be one of the youngest people in American history to receive a life sentence. But here's the question nobody can answer. What does justice look like in a case like this? Does it look like a 10-year-old spending the rest of his life in prison? Does it look like treatment and rehabilitation? Does it look like something else entirely? Kiana's family doesn't know. The courts don't know. And honestly, neither do we. What we do know is this: a mother is dead, a child is behind bars, and the system that was supposed to protect both of them failed. This story doesn't have a neat ending. It doesn't have a lesson that makes you feel better. It just has the truth, and the truth is ugly. If this case shook you, share it. If it made you think, comment below. And if you know someone struggling with a violent child, reach out, get help. Don't wait until it's too late. Because Kiana's story didn't have to end this way. Let's make sure the next one doesn't either. Stay safe, stay aware, and I'll see you in the next one. This is Shadows of Crime. We don't look away.